Excuses are the chains we forge with our own tongues. Excuses are poverty's favorite song sung loud by the mouths of those who have forgotten their power. They dress themselves in logic, wear the mask of reason, and offer the illusion of safety. But make no mistake, every excuse is a prison. Not of bars and steel, but of mindset, of belief, of identity. Excuses don't protect you, they poison you. They strip you of your agency. They whisper in your ear, "You're not ready. You're too tired. You've already tried." And if you believe them long enough, they become your truth. But here's the real truth. No one ever built a legacy by explaining why they couldn't. No empire was born through justification. No greatness was ever forged in the fires of, "I would have, but." Excuses are the vocabulary of the defeated, the anthem of the mediocre. They are the lullaby of those who've chosen comfort over calling. And once you start speaking their language, they become your currency. A currency that buys you sympathy, but never freedom. A currency that keeps you poor, poor in vision, poor in courage, poor in discipline, poor in results. Because poverty isn't just in the bank account. Poverty begins in the mind, and the mind that runs on excuses will never generate wealth, inner or outer. You want to know how people stay stuck? How people live year after year, circling the same problems, the same pain, the same paycheck? They explain it. They justify it. They build narratives that sound intelligent, but are rooted in fear. It's not the right time. I don't have the resources. I wasn't born with the talent. These are not facts. These are scripts. Memorized lines passed down from the poor in spirit. And the moment you stop questioning them, the moment you stop challenging the noise, you inherit a life that is not yours. It is a copy of someone else's limitations. But you are here now, which means the flame is still alive, which means something inside you is tired of the language of lack. And now is the time to trade it in. Trade your excuses for execution. Trade your fears for fire. Trade your doubt for discipline. Because every time you silence an excuse and take action anyway, you reclaim territory inside your soul. You declare, "I am not powerless." You declare, "I do not belong to limitation." You declare, "I will no longer narrate a story of why I can't because I am too busy proving that I can." And that declaration, that's where richness begins. That's how wealth is born. Not just in money, but in character, in energy, in mastery, in the kind of person you become when you stop explaining away your destiny and start claiming it. Excuses are the reason people live entire lives inside cages with open doors. Don't let that be you. Because every moment you allow an excuse to lead your life, you make a payment. And that payment, it's your potential. Gone. Wasted. Traded for the cheap comfort of, "I'll do it later." But later is not coming. Later is where dreams go to die. And the longer you wait, the heavier the excuse becomes. Until one day, it becomes identity. Until one day, it becomes who you are. And once it owns you, it takes everything with it. Your confidence, your clarity, your drive, your results. You become a shell of who you could have been. But you don't have to live like that. You don't have to be a mouthpiece for mediocrity. You can choose right now to speak a different language. The language of the powerful. The language of the focused. The language of the wealthy in mindset. And that language begins with ownership. Total. Radical. Unapologetic ownership. No more blaming the system. No more blaming the past. No more blaming your parents, your boss, your genes, your environment. Because the moment you give someone else responsibility for your pain, you also hand them control of your power. But the moment you say, "This is mine, my life, my responsibility, my choice," that's the moment the chains break. That's the moment the real wealth begins to accumulate, not just in your wallet, but in your being. And wealth responds to those who own their direction. Because ownership is the seed. And when you plant it in the soil of mindset, everything begins to shift. Mindset isn't about being positive. It's about being powerful. It's not about wishing for the best. It's about preparing for whatever comes, and knowing you can bend it to your will. The poor in mind ask, what if it goes wrong? The rich in mind ask, what will I do when it does, and how fast will I rise? Mindset is your fortress. It is the vault where your habits are guarded, your energy is protected, and your future is defended. You don't wait for motivation. When your mindset is strong, you move, because movement is your muscle memory. The difference between success and stagnation is not Luckett's language. And when your internal language is coded in excuses, every external result suffers. But when your language shifts to ownership, everything responds. Because the universe doesn't speak emotion. It doesn't speak intention. It speaks execution. It listens to frequency. And the frequency of belief, of discipline, of purpose, it moves worlds. So when your mindset sharpens, belief becomes the fire inside. Not belief in ideas, not belief in motivation, belief in yourself. And that belief is forged, not found. It is built in silence, in the dark, when no one is watching, when no one claps. It is built when you show up anyway, when you do the thing you said you would, especially when it's hard. Belief is the result of self-trust, and self-trust is the real wealth, because the world doesn't reward who you pretend to be. It rewards who you consistently are. And if you consistently show up weak, scared, or scattered, don't be shocked when life reflects that back to you. But if you show up clear, if you show up with clarity that burns, you stop chasing. You start attracting, because clarity is a magnet. It makes excuses irrelevant. You don't say, I don't feel like it. You say, feelings don't vote anymore. My future does. You don't ask, is this hard? You ask, is this aligned? You don't seek comfort. You seek alignment. And that alignment gives birth to vision. A vision so clear it makes quitting feel like betrayal. A vision so alive you can taste it in the back of your throat when you wake up. Vision isn't a dream, it's a demand. It calls something out of you that fear cannot touch. It makes excuses sound weak in your ears. You no longer have time for maybe. You no longer have space for someday. You are done waiting. You're building. You're becoming. You're moving with purpose now. And purpose doesn't care about how you feel today. It cares about who you said you would be when you were on your knees, begging for another chance. That's purpose. Purpose remembers. It remembers the nights you said, never again. It remembers the promises you whispered when no one was listening. And now it's holding you to them. Because excuses want release, but purpose demands resolve. And once purpose lives in you, discipline becomes sacred. Discipline becomes your highest expression of self-love. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop arguing with excuses. You stop asking for motivation. You show up, and that showing up is the knife that cuts the cord from poverty. Not just financial poverty, but mental, emotional, spiritual lack. Because you are done living small. You are done speaking the language of the poor. Now you speak in action. You speak in standards. You speak in results. And the world listens. Because now you speak in behavior. And behavior is the loudest belief system. It's not what you say in your quiet moments, it's what you repeat in your public ones. It's not what you feel in bursts, it's what you build in patterns. Action is identity in motion. So if your actions are scattered, your identity is unsure. If your actions are delayed, your belief is weak. If your actions are excuses dressed in logic, then you are not living, you are stalling. But when your actions become disciplined, when your days become precise, when your habits mirror your hunger, then you don't just make progress. You become unstoppable. Because there's something the world cannot deny the man or woman who refuses to stop. Not because they're gifted, not because they're lucky, because they made the decision to move forward even when everything screamed, stay. And that movement is not random. It's adaptable. Because now you no longer resist change, you ride it. You no longer pray for certainty, You command clarity inside chaos. You no longer fold under pressure. You flex with it. Adaptability is wealth. Not the wealth that shines. The wealth that survives. The wealth that lasts. Because the poor in mindset, they break at the first sign of change. But the rich in spirit, they bend. They morph. They reinvent, not because they're unshaken, but because they're unbreakable. And that unbreakable spirit, that's called resilience. It's not bounce back. It's bounce forward. It's using the fall to catapult your rise. It's using the wound to sharpen your weapon. It's using the silence to deepen your roots. Because resilience isn't built in comfort, it's built in crisis. It's built when your excuses are screaming and you tell them, you don't speak for me anymore. It's built when your body is tired, your mind is foggy, and your heart is aching, but you still show up. Not because it's easy, because it's required, because regret is no longer welcome here, because you've seen what happens when you live in excuses. You felt what it's like to watch others rise while you explain your limits. You've tasted what it means to know you're capable of more and still choose less. And you are done. Done with smallness. Done with softness. Done with maybe someday. Now you rise. And you rise as a learner because you know growth is the only guarantee of freedom. And the moment you stop learning, you start decaying. So you feed your mind like a warrior sharpens their sword. You devour truth. You devour challenge. You devour discomfort. You no longer fear being wrong because being wrong means you're still becoming. You no longer need to be the smartest. You just need to be the one who never stops evolving. Because while the poor argue, the powerful adapt. While the stuck defend their excuses, the uncommon study their execution. And now, so do you. Because you're not here to coast. You're not here to settle. You're not here to fit in with the tired, tame, and terrified. You are here to build, to become, to burn through the limits of your past and give birth to someone the world cannot ignore. Then stand still for just a moment. Let it all sink in. Let the excuses, the lies, the dead weight of average fall off you like old skin. Because this is the moment it all changes. Not because something around you shifted, but because you did. This is the moment you stop negotiating with your lesser self. This is the moment you bury the voice that said, you can't, with the roar of watch me. This is the moment the word someday burns into now. Because now you've remembered who you are. You are not here to explain why you couldn't. You are not here to list the reasons it was hard. You are not here to water down your potential to make the average feel safe. You are here to rise. You are here to become the exception. You are here to build a life so loud with evidence that excuses no longer dare to speak your name. So what's the next excuse? That you're too late? Time doesn't control the one who owns it. That you're too tired? Fatigue bows before purpose. That you've already failed? Then you're one of the lucky ones. Because pain is the only shortcut that matters. You are not your mistakes. You are the lesson pulled from the fire. You are not your past. You are the pattern breaker. You are not your circumstance. You are the creator of new reality. But only if you choose it. Only if you decide that today is the last day you speak the language of the poor. No more I wish. No more I'll try. No more maybe one day. From now on, you say, I will. You say, watch me. You say, this life bends to my will because I no longer bow to mine. Because this is your time. Not when it's easier, not when it's perfect. Now is the only time that ever mattered. Now is the only door that's real. Now is the only moment that separates you from the life you were given and the life you create. So what will it be? Another year of reasons? Another month of stories? Another day of playing small? Or will you rise? Right now, and declare with your entire being, excuses are the language of the poor, and I no longer speak that dialect. From now on, I speak results. I speak responsibility. I speak greatness, because I am done justifying mediocrity, and I have work to do. The world will pay you just enough to forget who you are. It will hand you a system, a syllabus, a sequence, and say, follow this, get a degree, learn the rules, get a job, stay in line. And for most, it works. Not because it fulfills them, but because it numbs them. Because formal education teaches you how to survive, but it rarely teaches you how to be free. It teaches you how to pass tests, not how to build wealth, how to memorize facts, not how to think critically, how to fill in blanks, not how to ask the questions that change your life. And so we graduate. We wear the robes. We frame the paper. And we walk out into the world trained to earn a living, but completely untrained to create a life. And that's where the great divide begins. Because the moment you realize your diploma is not your destiny, you stand at a crossroads. Do you stay loyal to the system that gave you the minimum? Or do you educate yourself into your own liberation? Because here's the truth. No one taught us in school. The curriculum that makes you wealthy was never in the classroom. It's in the pages no one assigned. It's in the podcasts no one graded. It's in the questions that made you uncomfortable. It's in the repetition no one clapped for. Formal education makes you a living. Self-education? Self-education makes you a fortune. Not just a financial fortune. A fortune in time. A fortune in freedom. A fortune in who you become. Because when you educate yourself, you don't just learn what to do. You learn how to think, how to unlearn, how to challenge, how to question the system that taught you to settle. Self-education is rebellion. It's responsibility. It's renaissance. It's when you stop waiting for the world to invest in you and you start investing in yourself. Not once, daily. You study your pain. You study your patterns. You study wealth, psychology, communication, leadership, influence, energy, emotion, discipline, vision, purpose. Not because someone told you to, because you decided to. Because you finally realized that the most expensive thing in the world is an untrained mind. A mind trained only to obey, but not to innovate. A mind trained to memorize, but not to monetize. Because let's be honest, most of what made you valuable in school won't make you valuable in life. School rewarded answers, but life rewards adaptation. School praised perfection, but life multiplies resilience. School measured intelligence by how well you repeated, but life multiplies the one who creates. And creation only comes from self-education. Because the more you learn, the more you earn, not just money, you earn options, you earn leverage, you earn peace. Because while the world waits for approval, you've trained yourself to move with authority. And when you move like that, the game changes. Because now, you're not just playing it, you're designing it. Because once you've tasted that power, once you've seen what your life starts to become, when you educate yourself with purpose, you'll never go back. You'll never again wait for permission to grow. You'll never again outsource your potential to a system that was never built for your greatness. Because now, you've discovered something far more valuable than grades or gold. You've discovered your mindset. And mindset isn't something they teach in school. It's something you build in purpose. Because self-education begins where school ends. When you realize your life is being built from the inside out, your beliefs, your focus, your thoughts, your rituals, this is where wealth is created. Not on paper, but in your philosophy. Mindset is what determines whether you see challenges as roadblocks or as rehearsal for your next level. It decides whether you see problems as punishment or as a divine curriculum for the person you're becoming. And once your mindset is rewired, your belief system starts to shift. Not belief in theory, belief in identity. You stop saying things like, I'm not good with money. I'm not a leader. I'm just not wired like that. You delete those programs and you install new ones. I am the kind of person who learns what I don't know. I am the kind of person who takes full responsibility. I am the kind of person who builds what they need to become. Because your belief system, it is the foundation of your entire reality. Your income, your influence, your intimacy. It all rises or falls to the level of your internal philosophy. And now that you've begun educating yourself, you're writing a new code. And that code breeds clarity, because clarity is the most underrated currency in the world. You can have the talent, the resources, the time, but if you lack clarity, you will build a life that looks good to everyone, except you. Clarity is the cutting edge. It is what allows you to slice away what's urgent, to protect what's essential. It lets you delete distractions without apology. It lets you say no without guilt. It lets you stop chasing noise and start building legacy. Clarity makes you powerful because it makes you precise. And when clarity fuses with belief, a vision is born, not a fantasy, not a motivational high, a vision, a picture of the life you were meant to live, a version of you that's unchained, unboxed, undeniable. You see it in detail. You feel it in your gut. And now you know, I'm not here to survive. I'm here to create. And that creation begins with discipline. Not the discipline they drilled into you in school, the kind that's built on fear, punishment, pressure. No, this is devotional discipline. Discipline born out of love for your future self. Discipline fueled by alignment, not anxiety. Discipline that says, I honor what I said I'd do, not because I'm trying to impress anyone, because it's who I am now. And when that discipline becomes daily, when it becomes sacred, your life becomes unrecognizable. Because once discipline becomes your baseline, action becomes inevitable. You stop overthinking. You stop second guessing. You stop rehearsing failure before you've even begun. You move, not because the stars align, but because your decisions are aligned. This is what self-education does. It removes the need for motivation. It replaces hype with habit. It replaces emotion with execution. And in that execution, you start building evidence. Evidence that you are becoming who you said you'd be. Evidence that your words are no longer hollow. Evidence that your future is no longer a fantasy. It's under construction. And the more you act, the more your world shifts. Not just what you do, but what you see. You begin to notice opportunities others miss because you've trained your mind to look for possibility, not permission. You stop chasing validation because your results now speak louder than anyone's praise. You stop fearing failure because you understand the only thing worse than failing is never evolving. And that's why action must be fueled by gratitude, not the surface level kind, not the write three things down kind. I mean soul level gratitude, the kind that brings you to your knees with realization. I get to build this life. I get to struggle for something that matters. I get to wake up every day and design my own reality. Gratitude is the amplifier. It doesn't just make life feel better. It makes your energy more powerful. It makes you unstoppable in the face of adversity. Because now you don't run from hard. You rise inside of it. And that's where adaptability comes in. The educated mind is not rigid. It's fluid. It doesn't cling to the way it's always been. It updates. When the plan breaks, you don't panic. You pivot. When life throws a curve, you don't crumble. You calibrate. Adaptability is the child of clarity. When your vision is clear, the method becomes flexible, but the mission remains non-negotiable. And as you adapt, you grow resilient. Because true education doesn't eliminate resistance. It teaches you how to leverage it. You stop seeing problems as signs to quit. You see them as reps. Every challenge builds capacity. Every setback forges character. Every detour develops depth. Resilience is no longer a trait. It's your default setting, because now you've rewired your identity. Now you're not someone who tries to change. You're someone who learns their way through transformation, because self-education never ends. You're a student forever, not in the way school taught you, but in the way life requires. You don't read to feel smart. You read to become strategic. You don't study to pass tests. You study to build tools. You don't chase certificates. You chase clarity, because you now understand the most valuable degree you'll ever earn is the one you give yourself. A degree in commitment, in self-awareness, in financial intelligence, in emotional regulation, in decision-making, communication, conviction, leadership, and legacy. You didn't get that from the system. You earned it in silence. You built it in the dark. You forged it through repetition. And now, you wear it in how you live. And that brings us here to the climax, to the moment where everything changes. Because this is the moment when everything before you, every chapter, every habit, every limitation, either becomes your excuse or your evidence. This is the line, the threshold, where the average turn back, where the uncertain wait, where the untrained mind looks for rescue. But not you, because now you know your freedom is not in the hands of the system that raised you. Your freedom is in the depth of your self-education. It's in how often you showed up to learn what no one forced you to study. It's in the hours you spent mastering what others called unnecessary. It's in the pages no one assigned, the mentors no one introduced you to, the sacrifices no one clapped for. This is what separates those who live a life by default from those who live a life by design. Because wealth isn't luck. Clarity isn't magic. Discipline isn't talent. All of it, every ounce, is a product of education you chose for yourself. The courses you took in silence. The books you devoured in solitude. The routines you built when your old self begged for distraction. The beliefs you rewrote when it would have been easier to just stay the same. And now you've crossed over, not to a perfect life, to a powerful one. A life that you built, not with inheritance or connections, but with decision, with devotion, with a hunger to become. Because that's what this was all about. Not becoming smarter, not becoming louder, becoming stronger, becoming wiser, becoming undeniable. And now, you don't just walk into rooms with confidence. You walk in with evidence. Evidence of work done, of identity built, of habits formed in fire, of a mind so tuned, so trained, so transformed, that the old life can no longer recognize you. You're not just educated anymore. You're armed with clarity, armed with vision, armed with self-belief so deep that failure is no longer your fear, it's your fuel. So when they ask how you did it, how you broke free, how you rose from average, how you created wealth in more than just money, you won't point to a degree. You won't show them a certificate. You'll say one sentence: I taught myself how to win. And that is why formal education made me a living. But self-education made me a fortune.